In this video, we're going to begin the common React Pitfalls topic on the Veracode Security Labs Community Edition. And the description of the topic says vulnerabilities frequently encountered in React.js application development. So we'll click Get Started here. We'll see there's 3 labs that we can go through. And the first one is going to be React String Sanitization, cause cross-site scripting, XSS through improper sanitization and poor variable handoff with React. So let's begin the lab. So the first section here gives us an introduction into the problem. Cross-site scripting, which I'll not cover in too much detail because I've covered it quite a lot in the DVWA series. But you have reflected, stored, and DOM-based cross-site scripting, and essentially this is JavaScript being injected into the page and executed. And it says here that React actually does a good job of preventing cross-site scripting because it generates DOM nodes instead of HTML strings, which are sanitized by default. But it doesn't mean it's completely safe, and we're going to look at a couple of possible vulnerabilities in React code. It says that one of the frequent occurrences is from server-side rendering. So here's an example here that they give with some vulnerable applications, vulnerable code, and they've also suggested this lab was inspired by this article as well on Medium, so you can go and have a look at this. I'll leave some links to some other articles as well on top of this about cross-site scripting in React, so that you can get some more details if needed. But let's just move on with the lab here. We have our code, a terminal here with our code editor as well, and we've got logs in case anything goes wrong. We have our actual lab, which has been loaded here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this in a new page, and I'm just going to move this out of the way just so we get the full terminal and code editor access, so we can go and actually look through the code here. We can make changes to it, save it, and things like that. So here's our page. Let's move on to the next page. So now on to spotting the vulnerability. So we're told to have a look at the server.js code and identify the Windows.Redux data is equal to, which is right here, and you can see it's doing the JSON.stringify. Oops, I've just changed it by mistake. The Redux state. So this is our vulnerable line of code, and it introduces the vulnerability because this Redux state, which is going to be loaded, is going to be added as the document as a string. So if it contains some JavaScript, it'll be written to the page without any character escaping, and therefore will be executed whenever the page loads. So we're told to open up the page, which we'd already done. Let's go back and do what they're telling us to do. They want us to open up our developer tools and go to the script at the bottom. So see here, go and check out the script tag at the bottom where the initial state is loaded into the Redux data just above appbundle.js. So we can see that right here, appbundle.js, and then we have this script which is loading in the JSON data. Where is the page getting its data? So if you go back to the actual API there, this is where it's actually grabbing the data from, circuits.json. Let's open this up. And we can view the raw data here. So this is the same data that's being loaded into this right here. So let's move on to the next stage. So we're told here that this particular vulnerability would be most dangerous if the initial state contains something the users could edit, such as their usernames or profile data, which it says that many React applications do have user editable fields, but that isn't the case here. So we're going to look at how the API could potentially turn evil and inject a script into the app's pages, for instance, if an attacker got access to the API results. So in order to simulate this, we can take a copy of this data. Let's take a copy of that right here, and we're told to maybe go and put it on a GitHub gist or in a pastebin file, and then we'll change where this to load from our data source and inject this JavaScript as well. So we'll take a copy of this. Let's go to pastebin.com. We can paste this in here, and then we're also being told that to replace one of the values at the end with this. So we need to close out the script, and then we're going to inject a new script just to create an alert. So we'll add that. You can put it in any of the values. I'll just put that in here. Let's create that as a paste. We want to grab the URL, but we want to make sure we're getting just the raw JSON data. So grab that. Let's go back and modify where it's grabbing the data from. Save and run. And then whenever we reload this page, we get this vulnerable alert box. So it successfully injected the JavaScript there. We actually don't see any of our data load up. Notice that, because it's actually got rid of that, or we still have that there, but it's not loaded it into the GUI, and we can see our vulnerable alert script there. Okay, so let's move on to the next section. We must complete this step. Visit the home page again. I definitely completed it. Okay, let's do it again. We'll go back to the... Oh. Please check for typos. Okay. There wasn't any typos. It actually worked properly. Alright, I'm gonna do... Now this is exiting for some reason. Okay, so I actually had to reload the whole lab to get back here. Got back. Let's try and get our XSS alert again. We've got it. Let's quickly try and move on before it breaks. And there we go. We've got onto the final section. So we're told that the fix for this is quite straightforward. We can, at the moment, the server's blindly rendering anything that's given, and we can simply add a layer that will neutralize the script tags before we serve the content to the client. So, as in the previous labs that we've been through, normally it's recommended to use an existing package that has that's battle tested, really, used by millions of users, and is likely to be robust. So in this case, they're recommending that we use the serialize-javascript npm module. So we'll run this in the terminal to install this. It says when we install it, although we won't handle the issue here, we note that the application has many outdated dependencies that will need patching. And then we need to go and add these imports in as well. So we're going to go to, while that's running through, we'll go to the server.js, and we need to import this. We also need to replace the JSON stringify call, which is down here at the bottom, and we want to add this to make sure that it is JSON data. And we're also doing the serializing it there as well. So we'll save this and then see if we can just run that again. Let's make sure everything installed okay. It did note that it found 2,188 vulnerabilities, so that's what it was talking about here, dependencies that need patching. Alright, so if we reload the page, we should see now that we don't get that JavaScript alert, and we don't. We can see that it's been rendered as text on the page. So the vulnerability's been resolved. And that's it, we've completed this lab. So we simulated an API turning evil. In this case, it was relying on the JSON.stringify to render potentially malicious content, causing it to unsafely display the embedded JavaScript. So an attack like this would most often come from a stored XSS attack. Again, you can go back to my DVWA series to cover each one of these, the stored, reflected, and DOM-based categories separately. The Web Security Academy is a great resource as well by Portswigger. Some great labs and material on there as well. But we should be careful anyway about trusting any external data without sanitization, and React is often safer from XSS, as we noted towards the beginning, but that doesn't mean it's completely safe, and there are some vulnerabilities that we need to take a look at. So we've got 2 more labs to go, but I'll put this article in the description about 3 security pitfalls that every React developer should know. Presumably, since there's 3 labs, we're probably going to be covering these 3 vulnerabilities, but check out this article as well. And I hope you've enjoyed this video. Any questions, comments, leave them down below.